Welcome to the Sharon Fitzmaurice podcast, and my guest today is Lucy Cronly. She's a life coach and author of The Right Shoes, a journey of self-discovery and meaningful connections. Lucy has an amazing story to share with us all of how she ended up being a life coach and writing her book, which is going to be launched on the 1st of March. Lucy, you are very welcome.
Thank you, Sharon. It's lovely to be here with you today.
Delighted to have you. So we were chatting a little bit before we came on and recorded this beautiful conversation. And you know more than many of my guests have amazing story. You just didn't wake up and you weren't born as a life coach and an author. There was a lot more to Lucy before that.
Right.
So we'll go and look back a little bit at Lucy. Where are you based in the country, Lucy?
I'm based in Trim, County Meath.
Lovely. So that would you consider that the Midlands of Ireland?
I'm not sure. My husband is from Offaly, so I think that's absolutely the Midlands. Um, I'm not sure what I'd call here. We northeast.
Very good. Just for our listeners that live in different areas of the
Yeah.
world, they like to get an idea of where. So I would see me as kind of in the middle somewhere, I suppose,
Yeah.
of Ireland. I'm on the west coast of Ireland in Galway. So yeah, you know, the way people are asking, are you on the west coast or the south
Oh, right,
coast or the
okay.
east coast or the north
Yeah.
coast?
Well, we're about 40 minutes north or northwest of Dublin. That would
Ah,
be.
very good. And everyone would know Dublin.
Yeah.
So Lucy, are you from Meath originally, or is that where you've always lived?
I'm originally a Dub, but we've but moved around an awful lot as a child. So, but mostly Dublin based, and so I consider myself a Dub.
Ah, good for you. Isn't it amazing? So, what was your childhood like growing up for you, Lucy? Were you a creative child? Were you outgoing? How would you describe
Um,
yourself?
um, I was a busy child. I was the oldest girl in five siblings. So that kept me busy. My mum passed away when I was six. So I suppose that kind of changed life for us quite a bit as well. Um, but I was always a busy kid. I was always doing something, making something, creating something. Yeah. So and it was funny, doing all the things that kids don't really do anymore. Out climbing mountains and out all summer, like getting as dirty as you can get and up to as much mischief as you could get up to as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I used to say the muckier we were, the more fun we were having. And I
Absolutely.
suppose nowadays it's people don't allow maybe their children that same freedom that we had. And I don't think we were told to go out and get mucky. I think we just found it and we
Ended
found
up
the fun.
lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was great fun. Probably not for our mothers or whoever was washing the clothes for us at the time. But going back to your mother, that at 6 years of age, your mother passing away, that must have been extremely hard, Lucy.
It was, I mean, it left a gap. And I think when we talk about grief, it's like, and the grief comes in stages, it's like grief comes in the empty places, a place where she should have been and wasn't around for that kind of different parts of my life. So I suppose it's a whole process, it's a life process when you lose somebody so young.
Hmm. How did you and your siblings manage together as a group or as a whole or as a family without that missing part that was so important in your mother?
I think we just moved along and just kind of got on with things, and made the best of what we could, made joy where there was joy. And really just it was the day-to-day things that kind of got us through and got us along.
Mm. Was there any part in your life then as, you know, a younger adult or even in your life now where that grief, because I love when you said it's, there's places and times where grief
Yeah,
shows up and you're not expecting it. And I think that's a lovely thing to say and to express,
yeah.
that it doesn't matter how much time has passed, that it can show up in our lives. For you, is there any significant milestones or times or events in your life where you really missed your mom being there?
Yeah, I think when my first child was born, there was, that space where usually a a mother comes in to nurture. So there were different times like that. I think when I hit the age that my mother was when she passed away, which was 28, and then when I hit double that, there was a real sense of privilege
Mm.
of having lived twice as long as her and having had the joy of my children. I have three boys, for that time, and having the privilege of being their mom, and it was like, well, how should I be a mother? So it was a whole funny, maybe I'm never going to be able to do this, so I felt like I was really just having a go at motherhood more
Yeah.
so than having an experience of what should be done.
Mm. It's fascinating, isn't it, Lucy, when you consider it, losing your mom at a young age and what it's like to be mothered and then to go into your own mothering and
Yeah,
what that should look like. It's something most people don't have to think about,
yeah,
unless they have lost a mother or a father at a young age and during their childhood.
yeah.
Did that make you decide on different choices in your life? Did it affect the choices you made then as you were growing up and where you were going to go in your own life?
I suppose it did, in that you know that she wasn't there for that guidance. She wasn't there at different points. So it was, I kind of had to figure things out myself, which I did. And there's funny thing, because I think if you have a prescribed way of the way things should be done, there's restrictions and safety in that. But there's also the opportunity to create whatever it is you want to create when there isn't somebody there. So it's that funny thing of, am I doing it right? Am I not doing it right? What should I be doing? How should I be moving this forward? And just kind of moving along with that and trying to kind of do the best that I could do. But I think the important thing for me is, although my mom died when I was actually very young, she left me with a sense that I was loved and that I was worthy. And that carried with me all the way through my life. And it's one of the things that I've looked to instill in my own children, that they are loved and that they're worthy. So it's like a solid building block that anything can be built on.
Isn't that beautiful? That is so wonderful. That at 6 years of age, losing your mom, but to have that feeling or that sense, because as
Yeah,
you know, and we'll talk about your work going forward, that many people have their parents with them all of their lives, all of their childhood, and they don't have that foundation. They don't have that sense of being loved and being worthy. So by losing even your mother at that age, you always had that sense or feeling. That's
yeah,
beautiful, Lucy.
yeah.
So she gifted you a lot, even in those short six
Yeah,
years.
yes, absolutely, she did.
Oh, that's beautiful. So tell me about you then going to school and where you went from there and what your dreams and hopes and goals were, Lucy.
Yeah. But going to school was just one of those practical things that had to be done, and school was ups and downs, and tricky at some times, and enjoyable at others. There were some amazing teachers, and I think teachers leave an impact as well in terms of how they see. When you feel seen by a teacher, I think that can be a very powerful and important thing. And I think one of the things that taught me was, the impact of a positive adult in somebody's life, that they can say something that can spark an idea, that can spark a confidence, that can spark a belief that something can come to pass. And I suppose the flip side of that is that sometimes an off the cuff remark that can be quite brutal can have the opposite effect. But I tend to look on the positive side of things. So for me, I try to absorb the good things and kind of bat back the not so good.
Yeah, very good. So when you were considering what you were going to do with your life choices as that
Yeah,
adult, or should we say from our leaving cert, where we're considered to make the choices that we think we're going to
yeah,
be doing for the rest of our lives and the pressure of it all, and we have to decide there and then. Did you
yeah.
feel that pressure in your life to make that choice?
No, I didn't. I always think, it's not what am I going to do for the rest of my life. I haven't fully decided what I'm going to do when I grow up yet. So
And here's your sister.
so it's like I think it's about looking at what you're going to do next.
Mm.
So it's looking at what are the opportunities, what are the skills, what are the positives, what are the things you're curious about, what is it you want to grow, what kind of lights you up and gets you moving, gets you out of your bed in the morning, what are those things and how do you build on those things?
Mm. So when you went from leaving cert, what was the choice or the curiosity that flowed through you?
Yeah, well, I had thought about nursing, and then I thought, no, I don't think I could do with the kind of people being very sick and things like that. I kind of felt like that wasn't something that I would work well with. So I then moved into social care and started working in a residential centre. And that would have been my first real job within social care. I'd worked in a catering place for a little while and then landed a job in social care, and it was something that I really loved and really enjoyed. I worked there for about 3 years and really enjoyed that. But then one Friday in the Irish Times, when the jobs were advertised in the Irish Times, I saw an ad for Saudi Arabian Airlines looking for air hostesses. So I decided, why not? So
Ah.
I applied and off I went and spent 2 years doing that. And I loved it. I loved the travel. I loved the seeing different cultures, different people, working with different people, being really curious about how different people thought about the world and saw the world and all that kind of thing. So I really loved that. But then the Gulf War broke out. So I came home at that point and back into social care and
Mm.
remained in social care for, I kind of have to do the sums, I think 26 years then after that. So I had kind of had 29 years in total in social care. But after an injury at work, I then had to medically retire and found myself going, now what? Sitting at home is so not going to work for me.
And
It's
was
not
there
going to.
a feeling, after being in a career for that many years, 29 years was quite a long time, really. But having the experience and of working for the Saudi Arabian Airlines and having that lovely traveling experience, that was just beautiful. What was it about social care that you liked so much?
It was the stories that people came with and being curious about how people were, having the sense that meeting people with where they were at, that I had the opportunity to see them and for them to feel seen and for them to look at making choices and decisions and empowering people in their lives. Even people who'd had really such difficult lives, children who'd had such a difficult start in life, that I could be a positive adult for them. And then I suppose moving into management, I was a manager of a team for a long time as well. It was then looking at um, helping staff to be the best version of themselves. So by staff being the best version of themselves, they were then able to be the best version with the young people and encourage them to be the best version of themselves. So developing a whole culture where everybody could thrive was something that I loved, that I enjoyed, and that I got great energy and great reward for in that kind of work.
Mm, that really is a great foundation as you moved into coaching then, Lucy. But what was that spark? I know you didn't want to stay at home and you were like, I can't stay at home. No, I want to go out and do something. So where did that spark of curiosity for life coaching come from then?
Yeah, well, what I like about coaching, and this is my interpretation of coaching, what coaching brings, it's looking at what are all the skills I have, who am I, where do I want to go, and helping people to actually step forward into what they want and making choices for themselves. And sometimes looking at what's the bigger picture and what are the little steps towards the big picture of where I want to go. So it's breaking that down and helping people sometimes just to put words on that for themselves. And one of the things I think that really has resonated so much for me is that people should be their own best friend first before they do anything else. And I think that's about, that internal conversation that we have with ourselves about, oh, I'd like to do such and such. And the little voice comes in and says, well, you're actually going to be rubbish at that. There's really just no point, don't do that. And we sometimes attribute those voices to other people, but it's actually our recreation of a voice. It's not the voice of that person. So we can actually stop it and we can change it and we can say better things and kinder things and hold ourselves accountable for the decisions that we make. And then, if we're our own best friend, no matter where you are, you've got somebody kind with you. And I love that. I love that idea. And that would be one of the fundamentals that I would have in my coaching practice. You should be your own best friend.
I love that. You're speaking my language, Lucy, something that I constantly say. And I know from my own experiences years ago, I had to
Yeah,
be my own best friend
yeah,
because, again, even in that, it's learning to trust yourself, isn't it? And
it
trust
is.
that there is a
Yeah,
kind, loving voice there to support you and encourage you on the times when the other voice is a little bit critical and judgmental,
yeah.
that you have the kind friend which is in yourself. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that. But again, it's having the awareness of that, isn't it, Lucy?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it takes practice because we're never going to just drown out that critical voice that we've carried for a long time. It's about, letting, bringing it into awareness. I want to live my values. If I call myself a kind person, I have to start with myself and be
Mm,
kind to myself. So then if you hear an unkind voice that you're developing in your own head, you go, hang on a minute, that's not in flow with my values. So how do I get that back in flow? So it changes the, kind of trying to push something down. Instead, just trying to look at what you're going to grow. Like I say that, if you want to plant a garden of flowers, I am not a gardener, so I won't be planting gardens of flowers. But if you want to plant a garden of flowers, you actually have to plant flowers. You can't just spend the whole time pulling weeds. If you
mm,
pull weeds all the time, all you're going to have is a plot of ground that has no weeds. You
mm,
need to plant flowers. And that's about the kind words to yourself, about holding yourself accountable, about, stepping in to be the best version of yourself and to grow something nice that you can have in your life.
mm. I absolutely agree with you. And I know for many of the people that I work with, and they have come through a lot of adverse things in their lives. And I suppose, again, through my own experiences, I can meet them where they're at. I can have that empathy and compassion with them, as I'm sure you can. And it is for me always, I say that it's helping them to become aware
Yeah.
of that story or the narrative, that they're having within their own heads. But even the narrative that they're telling other people, the
Yeah.
stories they speak about themselves into existence. And
Yes.
I constantly say, you've just told me a story.
Mm,
Do you
yeah.
truly believe that story? And if you truly believe that story, then it is true for you. So is
Yeah.
there a chance or an opportunity to create a different story?
Yeah.
And they'd say, oh, I never thought about changing the story. That's my story. And I said, it is because you believe it. And that's a lot of people growing up. They don't have the awareness that they can change the
Yeah.
story because, again, as you know, Lucy, that's why I loved when you said about your mother, you know, looking at yourself as a child of 6 years of age, losing your mother. But as an adult looking back now, she gifted you that love
Yeah.
and sense of being worthy and being held and supported, even though she's gone all of those years. That
Yeah.
is a beautiful gift that many people don't feel or sense in their lives that they've received. They just focus on the negative, and the story of which you may have is Oh, I lost my mother at 6 years of age. So everything in my life then was changed because of that loss. Instead of focusing on becoming, I suppose, resilient,
Yeah.
becoming, you know, independent, whatever other words that you'd like to use.
You know what, when you say independent, I think when we strive to be independent, it does us a disservice.
Yeah.
And why I think that is that, you know, in our younger years, we're dependent on other people to help us and to mind us and to look after us. You know, then we become independent. So we kind of break away from that very heavy dependence. But really, the highest form of maturity and when we be the best version of ourselves is when we realize that we need to be interdependent. So it needs to be a case of we have people in our lives that you can pick up the phone to and say,
Mm.
I'm having a bad day, or I need you to help me with something, or I'm having a really good day, I need you to celebrate with me. And that other people do that with you, you know, that other people come to you for things. And if there's that reciprocal relationship of you looking after other people and other people looking after you, it gives huge opportunity for growth and healing all the time in our lives. So I love the idea of interdependence, which I think brings much more um, uh, joy and ability and to grow in our lives.
Oh, I agree with you. I think that's amazing because when I hear people saying, like I said, oh, they're independent or they've been
Yeah,
independent, it's not a, it's nearly like, I don't know what word to put on it. It's nearly like they resent the fact of being independent, but it's also a badge of honor.
yeah,
And it teaches us to not reach out for support or
yeah.
not depend on other people and afraid of being let down or being judged. So I love that you've said that because there's nothing better than having somebody you know, whether it be a family or friend or a colleague at work, whatever it is, where you can say, I really need to just have a chat today.
But
And you
flip
know they're
that,
there.
yeah, but if you flip that, Sharon, how do you feel when somebody comes to you to say, can you help me?
Mm,
Like that's a huge gift to a person
yeah.
as well, to actually say, can you help me? Do you know what I
Mm,
mean?
yeah.
So that when somebody comes looking for your help, like think of how we feel when that happens. It's like somebody has seen you, seen the kindness or the joy or your ability, and knows that you can actually help to dig them out of whatever
Mm.
difficulty they're in. So there's a huge gift when you ask somebody to help you.
Oh, I always say that. I always say thank you for trusting me.
Yeah,
Thank you for allowing me to hold that space for you or for sharing that. I never take it for granted, as I'm sure you don't, Lucy, when somebody comes, especially, a client, and they open up their whole heart and world and they let everything fall out and the sadness and you're holding it. And I always feel like it is a privilege to be in this work, to do this work, and for people to trust you, isn't it?
it is absolutely, it
Yeah.
really is. And I think we have to remember that in our everyday lives as well.
Mm,
There's a huge privilege. You know, you're giving somebody a huge privilege because you're giving them an opportunity to help you out. And
mm,
you know, I love doing things for other people. I love helping other people. And I love knowing that I have people that I can ring that'll help me
mm.
regardless of what it is. Like even, I mean, I know I'm kind of hopping ahead, but like with my book launch, and I was really nervous about the idea of the book launch. But then around me came somebody who came with me, and I ended up booking the party package for the book launch instead of just a couple of hours in the evening. So I ended up, so now it's going to be a party. And then I was telling another friend of mine who's a fabulous singer, Emer Crehan. I was telling Emer, and Emer said, I'll sing a few songs for you. So I'm like, oh my God. So it's all come together so nicely. And then somebody else, like her son Jamie said, Emer's son Jamie said, I'll do the photographs. So next thing, it's all just grown with all these people who are willing to help me and to be a part of all this. So I feel so privileged to have people step in to do those things and to help me out with all that. So it's just
Oh.
wonderful.
That is beautiful. So I'm sure there are people that are listening to this podcast because, again, we can tell our beautiful stories and how we feel so
Yeah,
privileged in having those people in our lives. And maybe there's some listeners around the world listening and they're going, who do I actually have? It's making them consider, who would I have in my life to ring if I really needed help? Who
yeah,
is that person? Do I have a person?
yeah,
Or do they even ask for support? And maybe they come to the conclusion that they actually feel they don't have anybody
yeah,
or there's nobody there for them.
yeah. And sometimes people do feel that way, and that does happen. And one of the things I'd wonder with that is sometimes that we think that there are people that should be there,
Mm.
but they're not. And then people who are happy to be there, but it's not their role in any way. It's not a given role within our lives. And like that was one of the things. One of my sons was very sick. It's a long time ago now. He's a big grown up fella now, but just over 10 years ago with cancer. And it was the amount of people that came around us as a family to actually support us and help us. And people just out of the blue that stepped in to do things for us, to help us. Like one lady, I've never met her. I've only met her in the last few years, and this is over 10 years ago, this happened. Um, she had heard about our story locally. She popped into one of the shops, and a friend of mine owns the shop, and she said, will you tell Lucy to give me a call? I can help her get trips to the hospital, which will actually help out. And that helped out so much. So people will step in. So it's to see those people. It's to kind of try and see beyond the people that we expect to be there, because sometimes they're not able to be for whatever reason. But look for the people that just are there or that are willing to be there.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad your son is well and
Yeah,
even going through that experience and finding the people out there that you didn't know that were willing to step forward. I think there is generosity of spirit and kindness out in the world if we allow ourselves to
yeah.
receive it, isn't it true, Lucy?
Yes, I think so. I hope so. I mean, I think for some people, when they're feeling very low or very alone in themselves, it's much harder to see it. But to try and find those little glimmers, so it's to find the little glimmer of something, to see what possibly you can grow, what friendships can grow, what can grow in your life that will bring positivity and support and joy.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I found that helped me in my own personal life, because I can't tell anyone else what to do, but was volunteering and doing something without a reward as such. The reward was for me to see that I could help people I didn't know. It was
Yeah,
an organization and that I could do
yeah,
something. And that I knew that the end result would be a certain amount of people would be helped or the organization would be
yeah,
helped. And I felt like I was doing something really good in the world. So that made me feel good about my time and my energy and that thought process. And it's not that I ever wanted a reward. It wasn't about being acknowledged. But again, for me, there was a part that I felt almost that I needed to share that more people can step into doing something without a reward in their lives
yeah.
and that not enough people do it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's a funny thing because like I would have that very much about looking to put stuff out there just because you can.
Yeah,
Literally doing things just because you can, not
yeah.
for any other reason. And sometimes it's stepping completely outside your comfort zone. Like one of the things I took part in was there was a big strip and dip for children's cancer to build a house, which is called Avion's Lighthouse, with Avion's pink tie. It's out near Crumlin Hospital. But and they raised over 500,000 for children's cancer to build that lighthouse, which is a huge support for families go with children going through cancer, because they have to travel from all over the country to Crumlin. So to have somewhere safe for them to stay. And for me to be uncomfortable for however long it was, for half an hour, run into the sea. And we all have these conscious things about our body and who's looking. But most people, when they're talking to us, are not looking at our bodies. They're looking at our face. They're looking at our engagement, looking at who we are. And that was one of the things that I took away from that experience. So it was stepping outside of my comfort zone, looking to give back, looking to do something good, to put something into the pot. And yet I actually got something from it as well, which is the importance of how we connect with each other and the importance of connecting with each other and being in something together. And would I go down and get into the sea by myself on a very cold day in the nip? No. But when there's a group of us all together, we all encourage each other along and come on, we're doing this for a good cause, and in you go. And suddenly we're all in the sea.
Yeah.
So that
That's
was
powerful.
yeah.
It's powerful. And again, for me, it kind of confirms or reaffirms that sometimes getting out of our own way, getting out of that comfort zone we perceive as comfortable, but we don't feel like we're doing anything with our lives, is doing something different. And
Yeah.
again, for doing as a volunteer or for a charity or an organization is a great way to connect with other people, to give something back because the reward is immense for yourself. Just as you said, Lucy, you're going to learn more about yourself and that you can do things that you've never done before and that you will be supported. I think that's a wonderful, for me, it's kind of a great conversation starter.
Yeah, I agree. And like for me, one of the things I'm doing now, because now I'm very consciously in that space, I look to take up something that's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I'm actually going to do in the next little while is sing on the stage on my own. I don't know why I'm doing it. I really don't. I need to kind of have a word with myself about this, but it's about, we can sit in what we perceive as this comfortable space, but after a while the comfort becomes uncomfortable. So it's like always looking to push something a little bit more. And for me, it's about that, standing up to the microphone and letting my voice go. And when I was with the tutor, who's actually Emer Crehan, the girl who's going to sing with me at the launch, Emer said to me yesterday, stand up to the microphone and sing right into it, because she said that then the sound engineer can help you.
Yeah.
You stand right back, he can't hear you. All he can do is turn the sound up. That's not going to help. But if you stand into the microphone, sing, then somebody can help you. So isn't there such power even in just that idea?
Yeah.
Stand in, have your voice heard, and somebody can help you.
Yeah, in everything in life. And
Yeah.
it's amazing because I only had a client this morning and it was about, you know, again, which it is for a lot of us, isn't it, in life? It's having our voice heard, being seen, and feeling like we're worthy or that we're deserving of something.
Yeah.
And that until we actually stand up, as I say, stand in your power, even if you're shaking in your shoes, stand there for you. Don't worry about anybody else. Stand there for you because you're the only one that can change the direction or the course of your life by saying, I want this.
Yeah.
So you're going to be singing it, Lucy, into the, I love
100%.
it.
And you know something? Like my family are coming, there's going to be other people there. But even if I can't sing this song, I am going to sing it anyway, not to be a fabulous singer, but to actually have my voice heard, step up to the microphone and let somebody help my
Yeah,
voice be heard. So there's that's really the reason for doing it, because we can try and keep our voices small or not have our voices heard, but sometimes it's about stepping up. And that whole thing that you're saying about being really anxious or being really nervous and you're standing there shaking. Well, I love the work that Tracy Dennis Tawari does, and what she talks about is, she says, well, actually, when you are feeling really anxious, your hands are sweaty, your heart's beating really fast. But when you're excited, what are you doing? Your hands are sweaty, your heart's beating really fast. So if you're standing there and you go, I'm actually excited, So what is the story you tell yourself? And that's like a little bit about what we were talking about earlier.
Mm,
It's what story do we tell ourselves that helps or that hinders? So it's, and that idea of the first arrow and the second arrow. The first arrow is the thing that happens that sometimes we've just absolutely no control over.
mm,
But the second arrow can be the story we tell ourselves about it that can make it much more difficult. So it's, what do we do with what happens? What story do we tell that
mm.
helps, or that gives us light, or that gives us a way to move forward? And sometimes that's only tiny, tiny steps, or sometimes it can be bigger steps. It doesn't matter, as long as there's steps and as long as you've got some kind of idea as to what you'd like to move towards.
I love it. And you mentioned that it one step at a time, because
Yeah,
that's when I published my first book. I remember I was one word, one line, one page, and and everything is one step at a time for every single person. Even top athletes have to take one step at a time, to get towards where they want to go. They just don't wake up and be an Olympian straight
yeah,
away. They have to train for years. If we all woke up as super athletes, wouldn't it be
yeah.
fabulous,
Well,
Lucy?
I'm
Wouldn't
hoping
it
for
be?
that tomorrow, but sure, look, we'll see
Yeah.
how it goes.
But again, even for you to do something,
Yeah,
that out of the ordinary, I suppose, to stand up on stage, and it is that thing, it's that feeling you're alive.
yeah,
Even as you said, you're nervous, but excitement is the same. I only spoke in Dublin a few weeks ago, and I said that to the audience. I said,
yeah,
the old me would have said, "Oh my God, I'm too nervous. I can't do this." I said, but the new me, the new voice is telling me that I am so excited. It's giving me
yeah,
the adrenaline pumping through my body so I can perform, so I can speak out loud, so I can gain your attention by being my demonstrative self, and being passionate about something. And I think that's what it is. It's standing there, isn't it? And saying, even if I feel nervous, I'm also doing something that
yeah,
I have taken a step towards to prove something to myself
yeah,
and also to everyone else that we can do hard things.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. We can only learn how to do hard things by doing hard things.
Yeah,
You're not
yeah.
going to learn to do hard things by taking the easy road all the time. It's the level of difficulty that we set ourselves. So I think we can do that in small steps. Something that's a
Mm,
little bit difficult. Yeah, okay, I can do that. And you always do it twice. Everything you do twice. The first time you do in your head, thinking about it, and
mhm.
the second time you actually do it. You
Yeah,
know, so so everything we do twice. And that whole thing about anxiety, like anxiety is whereby we're super smart as humans, so we're able to project all of the things that can go wrong,
yeah.
and that's what we fall into with anxiety. So
Mm,
it's all so I could start to think about having to get on stage. And I'll tell you a funny story. When I was in second class in school, would have been one of my last ventures on stage. I've been on it a few times since, but in a group. But I was Irish dancing and I have no coordination. So the Irish dancing teacher was doing, kind of tapping under her chin saying, look up, look up. So I'm looking up. But if I'm looking up, I'm so busy looking up, I can't figure out where my feet are going. So I danced off the stage and into the band at the front
oh,
and got a lollipop and to sit on the side of the stage for the rest of the evening for my troubles. But it's so I can get into, I could fall on the stage, my voice might go, this might happen, that might happen, the other might happen. So that's the anxiety. When the anxiety
mm,
kicks in, it's all of the things that can go wrong.
mm,
But I think if we're going to do that, we can't stop ourselves from doing that. So I would kind of, one of the things I would do, and I'd use with clients and with myself as well, that when I'm looking to do something like that, if on one side of the page, just write everything down, all the things that can go wrong, and then take the time to look at, why do I still want to do this? Because there are so many things that can go right,
mm.
and you have to balance the scales.
Yeah.
The other side of the page, put all of the rewards or the things you want to gain or the things that you might get out of doing whatever it is.
Mm,
you are thinking about doing. So don't become
absolutely.
paralyzed in all the things that can go wrong.
Yeah, and I think it's so true. And you hear people continually saying, "Oh, I'd love to do that now, but I wouldn't be able." And oh, they're great at doing new things, but I'm not one of those people. And it's a continuous repetition of the same old stories that keeps
Yeah.
them locked
Yes.
in
So,
isolating themselves.
and the language I like to use around that is, instead of saying, I can't do something, say, I can't do it yet.
Yeah.
Just add yet onto the end of the sentence. So that creates the possibility that you might.
Yeah, I
So,
absolutely. And it is all about the words we use, Lucy. Well, I wish I was in the audience when you're going to sing out loud into that microphone, standing in your power and with everyone clapping and cheering you on. Because again, it's focusing on, as you said, the people
yeah,
that are there to encourage you and support you. And that they want to see you do well. I don't think there's anybody that's ever in an audience that wants to see anybody on the stage not do well.
and that's so true.
Yeah.
Most people are there, they might be a little ambivalent about it, but most people, the majority of people want to see you thrive, see your courage and see your bravery in what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, that's what I think we need to focus on.
Mhm.
And focus on those things. And like we were saying, on those people that give us courage.
Mm. And also knowing that you're inspiring maybe somebody else out there by doing something out of your comfort zone, something that you may feel a little bit nervous about. You mightn't be the best at it, but you've tried it. And then they look at you and go, God, Lucy, I might give that a go next time.
Like you never know though, Sharon. I might run away and join a band. You just
Yeah,
wouldn't know after
I'll be
this.
seeing you on the telly next as the lead singer on the Late
Yeah,
Late Show.
yeah, exactly. Oh well, no, I don't think so. But
Yeah.
but it's that fun of something. I am doing this just because I can, just because I want to push myself a little bit out of my comfort zone and just see what happens.
I love it.
Those 3 or 4 minutes on the stage, and that's all it is. Those 3 or 4 minutes on the stage are mine.
Mm, love it, Lucy. I love it. So you then we want to talk about your fabulous book
Yeah.
because I love the story that you told me. So the book wasn't something that you sat down and said, I'm going to write a book.
No.
Tell our listeners how the book came about.
Well, again, after I had to retire from work, I discovered all the wonderful online learnings that can happen as well, and all the different learnings that are out there now. So I went back to the UCD Innovation Academy and did a level 9 in innovation, creativity, and leadership. And part of that was we had to look at a creative project. And I was going, what am I going to do? So the last day of the first week of creativity, where we'd been doing all kinds of things, making stuff and standing in our socks and all those things that we do just to kind of shake ourselves up a little bit. I was walking around the campus. We were given a bit of time on the UCD campus, and it was just walk around with your thoughts and see what comes. So as I walked around, I was just, and normally I look up to see what's around me. Sometimes I look inside to see what's happening in my heart or in my head. But this day, my feet and my shoes caught my attention. And watching as suddenly I felt, oh, I don't really feel very safe on the grass here. It's very slippy. I want to get up to somewhere safer. So I got up onto a safer spot, but because I was by myself walking, I could hear shoes coming behind me and I wasn't sure what was coming. And I started to experience that idea of just being in my own shoes and what if I can, I'm sure not sure if I'm explaining it right, but it's like the idea that when we choose our shoes, we choose places that we want to be and how we want to set ourselves up. And when I was walking around, it brought me back to when I was in the hospital with my son who was sick. And I always wore quiet shoes in the hospital. And I wore quiet shoes in the hospital because it made me feel less there. Does that make sense? It was
Yes.
like, because I could move around quietly, it was like I was nearly invisible
Mm.
and we weren't really fully there. And you know, that sense of if you put on a really noisy pair of shoes and you're walking around, everybody can hear you coming. You can hear yourself on the move, you know, and then it's, you wonder what your footsteps bring. So all this idea started to grow about, you know, what power is there in the shoes that we put on, and
Mm.
that metaphor that could be created around having the right shoes. So I wrote the academic paper, which I had to have in for my end of year, and I had to do a presentation as well. And then the mad thing was, I went back and had a look at all my photographs, and I've taken loads of photographs of shoes over the years. I took photographs of my son's shoes one day. I came down the stairs, and as I stood on nearly the last step, I looked down at my youngest son's shoes, and he was my youngest, my baby. And his shoes were about twice the size of my shoes. It's like, oh my God. And then it was like, and my head scratching moment of, how has this happened? How is he so grown up and so big? And then it was, oh my God, if he's grown up, then the other two are grown up as well. And it was just that moment of realization and the story that was right in front of me in the shoes. And I took a photograph. So, and that's a number of years ago I did that. So, and I've taken, then I realized in my 100,000 photographs that I had on my phone, I had lots of different photographs of shoes that I've taken over the years. So the story all started to grow around all that. And then there was the academic paper, like I said, which all was submitted at the end of the year. And one of the tutors said to me, you should make this into a book. So that kind of sat in my mind, but didn't really go anywhere until I joined Business Network International. And they're an amazing group of people that all come together to look at helping each other. We grow each other's businesses, we get to know each other, we develop trust among ourselves that we're happy to refer each other for work and things like that. And one of them, in the course of the conversation, I was talking about my project, which was literally just a fun project that I'd done. And they said to me, well, you know, we've got a publisher in BNI. We can put you in touch. So that was how I ended up getting in touch with the fabulous Orla Kelly, who you know as well, Sharon.
Yeah,
And
amazing lady.
yeah, so I sent her off my idea, and it was written, like I said, as an academic paper. So it needed a good bit of work to get it to a book. And she just said to me, I love it. Let's do this. So, of course, then I had a, oh my God, what am I going to do now moment? There's no getting out of this now. She'd come back to me and said, look, this is a pile of rubbish. You know, in some ways that nearly would have been easier. So that was how the book started to grow. And it's the idea that, you know, if I can say to anybody and say, oh my God, I love your shoes, and people will tell you a story about themselves, about maybe where the shoes came from or who bought them for them or why they bought them, or they bought them to go to an event. And there's nothing intrusive about asking somebody about their shoes. So it's like, it's a nice segue into meaningful conversations, a meaningful conversation with ourselves, a meaningful conversation with other people. And it's the idea as well that, you know, when you get up in the morning, that you can set yourself up well for the day by actually deciding what shoes you're going to wear. So you think about, well, how do I want to feel today? What terrain am I going to cross? Do I want to make noise? Do I want to feel a little bit invisible? How do I want to show up or not show up or be in a space? And picking your shoes can just give you a little scaffold for the day to get you through. And that's where the books all come from.
Oh, it's amazing, Lucy, because the title of the book is The Right Shoes, A Journey of Self-Discovery and Meaningful Connections. And as you were talking, it popped into my head a pair of red stilettos. They were not just red stilettos, they were most amazing red stilettos that I had ever bought, and they were €50 and they were quite high and the bright color. And I remember when I went in to buy them, I felt like these are the fanciest shoes I have ever bought in my life, but I was ready to step into them. That was the feeling.
So
And
you bought a dream.
yes, and I wore them to go to a wedding, and I had them for years. They were obviously a good pair of shoes,
Yeah,
and but I only wore them when I was getting dressed up or going to a party and different things like that. And everyone commented on my shoes always. And I remember when I think I had worn them out where there was no more wearing of them, and it was nearly like saying goodbye to an old friend
yeah,
when I had to send those shoes away. And
yeah,
it's amazing. I'm sure people are listening and they're all recalling now a pair of shoes that they loved or that were really comfortable, or there's a story behind it, or as you said, your children's shoes, their first shoes, the
yeah,
shoes that, oh, I'm sure there's so many. And now when you think about it, it's just like, yes,
yeah.
shoes have such a story to tell.
So when you think about those red shoes, like the question is, what gift did you give yourself when you bought them?
That I was worthy to
Yeah,
wear those shoes and to be seen. And again, for everybody that listens to this podcast, they'll know my story. I was invisible. I isolated myself through all of that. I didn't have a voice. I wasn't able to share my story because of the shame. So, with working through all of that myself and all the work I did before I'm now helping others, buying those red shoes was like saying, here I am. I'm showing up for myself. And red, of course, is my favorite color. It connects to the root chakra, standing in your
yeah,
power, feel strong and grounded and centered. So to me, they were more than just red shoes. They stood for much more.
yeah. And shoes do.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So then it's like, if you think about the collection of shoes that we all gather over time, and sometimes we have shoes that we can't wear anymore because we have a bad knee or our feet hurt or, all those different things that happen. But for lots of different reasons, we can't wear shoes, but we hang on to them and they fill up our shoebox and they fill up our wardrobes and they fill up our bedrooms. And it's like that way we get stuck. So it's like, if you can go in and take out the shoes, that once brought huge joy, but no longer serve you, you can actually move them along and gift them to somebody else and create a space for a new pair of shoes or a new something that you want. So it's a way of unsticking yourself, you know, getting out of that stuck space of all those things of, what I'm going to go back to, or I was able to wear these once, and the stories we tell. So why not find new shoes to tell stories about? Why not find a new dream and what are the new red stilettos in your life? Like, what would they be now?
Mm. And it even goes to like the shoes that people wear. Every time I wear these shoes, they hurt me, or these shoes are too tight, but I'll wear them. So it's always being uncomfortable and not allowing yourself.
Yeah.
Again, when you think about shoes, they're supporting you. So
Are they? That's the thing. Are they supporting you or are they getting in your way? Because
yeah.
the wrong shoes can actually leave you very uncomfortable. So if it's a place you want to be, a place you need to be, and like in the book, I took, and again because I was thinking of the process of it, one day I came out the back and I was having some building done out the back, and I went out in my slippers, and suddenly I'm trying to tiptoe around everywhere, and I thought I've just got the wrong shoes on. That's all that's wrong here. It's
Yeah.
not I'm in the wrong place. I'm uncomfortable because I've got the wrong shoes on. So I went back in, took out my lovely spotty wellies, stuck them on, and I was able to go where I needed to go comfortably around the building space.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I love it because, again, it's bringing so many things to mind of shoes and everything else. What do you hope the readers would get from your book?
I hope that they will get the idea that they can make choices, thinking about the choices that you can make about shoes, thinking about the stories that there are about shoes. It's about looking at the stories that can be helpful to you, that you can create for yourself, to be the best version of yourself, to be your own best friend, to support yourself in somewhat difficult times, to create a pause sometimes for yourself in the day to think, is it just the wrong shoes? Am I in the right place? Do I need a different kind of support that'll get me better through the day? And just to start to play with those ideas around shoes. And the funny thing is that a friend of mine who read the book, and I went down to see her there recently, and as I walked in the door, she said to me, "Here you," she said, "that book about shoes, that's not about shoes at all. Do you know that?" And I said, "Actually, I do." So it's about shoes, but it's not about shoes. It's about the stories we tell ourselves. And shoes are just an easy way into those conversations. And when I picked the cover of the book, I didn't put shoes on it because I didn't want to gender or define or alienate anybody from the story. I didn't want to put shoes for children on it. I didn't want to age or gender the story in any way, because I wanted it to be whatever people made of it, and that they could put their own shoes into the picture. So it's kind of two. I have it here. I can show it to people on YouTube. You see, it's paths kind of converging and moving forward. So it's just that idea of a journey. So a continuous journey of our life, in the moving forward, and kind of being whoever we want to be, and about creating opportunities for hopes and for dreams and for seeing glimmers of hope and light around us. And like I said, not always where we think they should be, but actually seeing them wherever they are.
Yeah. I always say that when I hear people saying, I just want to be happy and I just want to be this. And, it's way out there. And I said, we have moments of happiness and we have glimmers of hope and glimmers of joy and glimmers of sadness and glimmers of everything throughout our days and our lives. And it's in those moments that, I always say, in those moments, embrace them, embrace the moments of happiness. There is no trick or whatever it is, a list of things to get happy, because we're going to experience every emotion, aren't we, Lucy?
Absolutely. But the idea of being happy, that's like an end destination.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got to an end destination, and do we just spend our time then sitting and happy?
Yes.
So I change it, and I would say, regardless of where you are, regardless of what you're doing, what can you do right there and then that will make you happier? Okay, so add the to the end. So it could be like when I would have been in the hospital with my son, and there's nothing happy about being there. But what could make me happier in that moment? Sometimes it's a cup of tea, it's a hug from a friend, it's a hug from my son, knowing he's loved and I'm there with him. So what is it in the moment, in those even really difficult and dark times, that can just give a glimmer of something happier than where
And
you're?
again,
So
it's about,
it's a little thing.
yeah, and it's something we'll go back to that we started with. It's being your own best friend and how you would bring happiness or comfort or support to your best friend or a family member in that moment. You don't have to fix it, you're just there to support them. And it could be just the nice, kind words, the support. Being able to do that for yourself in the moments when you need it is such a powerful thing to be able to give ourselves, isn't it, Lucy?
Absolutely. It's so important to just, reach for the little thing that can just make you happier in that moment, and just to hold on to that, and to be that with around other people as well. What is there something that you can do? You can't fix the very difficult thing that's happened, but sometimes the gift of listening to somebody, of just sitting beside them, of making them a cup of tea, all those little things, they matter. Those little things matter. When we get in the way of ourselves and we go, oh, but I'd be rubbish at that and I wouldn't know what to say. And sometimes you don't even have to, you can just show up and say, I don't know what to say, but I'm here. I can make tea, or, I can do your laundry, or I can do what is it that I can do, or I can just sit here with you. We can just sit here together.
So true. Lucy, it has been a joy having you as my guest today on the podcast. I
Yeah.
love that your tutor and BNI and Orla encouraged and supported you to bring out this beautiful piece of work that is your book, The Right Shoes, A Journey of Self-Discovery and Meaningful Connections. And it will be launched in Trim Castle on the 1st of March.
Castle Arch. The Castle
Sorry,
Arch.
Castle, excuse me, Castle Art.
I
Thank you
mixed them
very
up
much.
myself. Yeah.
Trim Castle says me. So Castle Art. And if you can't make it to the launch, you can find Lucy's book on amazon.co.uk /right shoes self-discovery meaningful. But I will be putting the links up in the show notes. You can connect with Lucy through Lucy Cronly, CRONLY coaching.ie. And you can find Lucy on LinkedIn and Instagram because it was LinkedIn I connected with you,
Yeah.
Lucy,
Why?
which is a wonderful place to connect with people. And I'm so grateful for your time, Lucy, and for sharing
Yeah.
some of your life and some of your stories and your inspiration for your book. It's just going to be, it's just lovely. I just can't wait to read it now myself.
Well, I'd be delighted when you do and to hear your feedback. And just the other part of it, which is in the bonus items, just for people to know that there is a workbook. So if you email me, I can send you the workbook. And that's really for you to start the thought process yourself. And like there are bits in the book that you can write in the book. So there are pages that you can do that. But there's also a workbook which has extra stuff in it. So if you want to kind of take that journey as well, just give me a shout and I'll email that on to you.
Oh, I love that. That's even made me love it more because when I published my first book, and I remember I finished it and I went, but how am I going to support them when they read this? Because it'll have obviously resonated with a lot of people. What will they be able to guide themselves, to somebody? So I brought out a journal to accompany it. And it was amazing because, like you, they were able to write down their thoughts, what came up for them. There was a little bit of guiding teamwork in each day and whatever. So, yeah, so it's amazing. That is a brilliant idea, Lucy.
And just the one thing that I just like to say to at the very end of all this is that, there is nobody else in the world the same as you. Nobody. You are so unique in who you are. And it's about finding what is your gift to give the world and to give yourself and to be kind to yourself. Just remember how unique and important you are.
And it's so true because we all have unique talents, skills, and abilities, but we need to go and look as to what, and it's what you go back to again, because I am always saying this, the curiosity. What do I want to do? What would I like to do? What am I curious about? Asking yourself those questions. And
Yeah.
again, you may not have the courage yet to go and stand on the stage and sing like Lucy or launch your book,
Yeah.
but maybe you'll get curious and find a little bit of courage within yourself to do something, just a little step, one step outside of your comfort zone
Exactly.
and
Give it
wear
a
your fabulous shoes doing it.
That's it, exactly.
And what kind of shoes are you going to be wearing for your book launch on the 1st of March is the other question.
Oh, I have the shoes picked. The shoes are a pair of they're just so gorgeous. They're like a brown suede, like a little Unahili cowboy boot. They're so nice. I love them. And I've tried them on loads of times. So yeah, so looking forward to wearing them too.
Oh, and even that, the excitement is like a child going to put on those, isn't it? Their shoes. It's so exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lucy, thank you so much again for joining me.
It's
It's
been
been
lovely
so,
chatting.
it's been really lovely to chat to you as well. So thank you so much. And I'm wishing you every success for your book launch, for the work that you do and your future, because no doubt you'll be helping many people out there. And I hope that the listeners gain as much as I've gained from having this conversation with you today. So thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
So thank you so much to Lucy Cronly. You can check her out, lucycronlycoaching.ie and lucy.cronly@gmail.com. And you can find her on LinkedIn and Instagram. And as I said, her book is on Amazon, which you can find right now. The Right Shoes, A Journey of Self-Discovery and Meaningful Connections. Thank you so much again to all of you for listening. I appreciate your support. Please do share, subscribe, follow, share with the people in your life. It really means a lot to me. And this podcast is brought to you in association with Retreats Ireland. Until next time, take care of you.